Okay. Here we are. I think we're live. Hello, YouTube.
Hi, YouTube.
Hello, potatoes.
I don't care about you,
Yeah.
YouTube.
YouTube is like, what, UU encoded?
I don't think that's why they call it that, but I'm no streaming video expert.
Aren't you? I think you are.
It's sort of
All
like
right.
how you can drive a car and not know how they work. That's how it is.
Ah, now you're talking my language. I'm just a simple country lawyer, but I believe Quinn is a streaming expert.
Gotta pull on the suspenders when you do that. That was good radio there, me doing this.
All right. Anyway, let's see what happens in our 254th episode. Episode Fee, I suppose. Yes. Photography accomplished.
Sorry. I'll mute that now. Rocket was doing something cute. I just had to grab that quick.
There was somewhere someone did an interview. I think it's the person who did the startup chime for the Mac or whatever. You know, like the music that actually is. But also, I think is the person whose camera made that noise that has made it into all camera apps.
Yeah,
So it is apparently weird to hear your camera everywhere around you going off. But somewhere I'll find the link to that probably. All right. It's April 10th, 2022, and welcome to episode 254 of the Retrocomputing Roundtable. The RCR is a podcast about retro computer news, nostalgia, collecting. Usually I always think when I get to this point, you know, I should probably plan ahead and come up with something to say. But what I end up saying, it always ends up being like, you know, something that we talked about before we turned the recording on, you know, so that no one has any idea what this is in reference to, even though it's very funny in the moment. So anyway, it's about retro computer news, nostalgia, collecting, and nobody knows what, but we will see. Anyway, I'm Paul Hagstrom, near Boston. I am joined today by three retro computing enthusiasts, the first of whom is Quinn Dunkey in Los Angeles. How are you?
Hello, I am outstanding.
Excellent. I think you were outstanding last time, too, so it's a streak of two.
Well, then in that case, I'm instanding, just to be
Okay. Excellent. Also
I'm
joining
sitting, actually.
Yep. Excellent. Also joining us is Earl Evans from Portland. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you.
Excellent. Outstanding. Fantastic. Also joining us is Carrington Vanston from Toronto. How are you?
You've used all my superlatives, so I am, godlike. I don't know where I
That's
can go
right.
from there.
Yeah.
How do I win this?
On today's episode of Paul Lists Adjectives.
That's actually always my complaint about, there's a certain type of television show that involves kind of like unraveling a large conspiracy of some sort, where there's like, you know, there's something going on and it's, you know, the levels of, I don't know, local government or corporation or something like that. But the problem with this is that these shows are popular enough that they then have to like think of something to do for the next season, and so it always levels up as to like what level this conspiracy is at until it winds up being some sort of galactic conspiracy. But anyway, episode 254. Here we are. Yeah, so I guess we have for the last few episodes been trying out this idea of looking at the year that kind of relates a little bit to the episode title. So this is 254. So we've made it up to 1954. I don't think we really have any unified plan as to what that means, except that we may have thought of things that relate to 1954, possibly. So anyone want to start?
Fortran, take it, Earl.
Fortran was a language. And it still is.
Is a language. Is a language.
Yep.
But it's from 1954, correct? That's when it
That's when
came
it was
out first.
published, I think. Yeah.
Fortran 54.
And a really big deal. We've talked about it before, I think, on the show, but the big deal was that up to that point, if you wanted to program a computer, you were doing it in the assembly language of the computer, or maybe whatever kind of scripting language or tools they had. But Fortran started to standardize things, made it easier to program the computer, and also as subsequent versions of Fortran came out, it started to be cross-platform. So you could take your Fortran knowledge with you to another system, which sounds completely normal today, but was not at all normal at that point. And another interesting thing about Fortran, the reason I'm rattling all this off the top of my head is because we did a Next Without 4 episode on Fortran. So, it's all kind of stuck. These useless bits are stuck in my head. The other interesting thing about Fortran is a design goal. They thought that programmers might reject the idea of a high-level language, that the programmers might say, yeah, that's all great. It's easy, but it's not going to perform as well as if I write it in the native machine code of the system. So one of the design goals was make it as stinking fast as possible. Optimizations, doing whatever they could to make it perform as close to on par with the machine language as they could. And they pretty much succeeded. And I guess that's one of the reasons why Fortran lasted so long and even lasts to this day. I think you had a note in the show notes, didn't you, Paul, about the most recent version of Fortran and one that they're even talking about a new version will be coming out?
Yeah, there's at fortran-lang.org. There is, that's where you can find Fortran 2018, and they're working on the specs for the next one, which I think right now is only just called 202X because they're not quite sure exactly when it's coming out, but it's still going. High performance parallel programming language Fortran.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's in the top 10 or top 20 anymore, but it's still being used by a decent percentage of people out there for high performance mathematical computing.
Yeah, I think of it as a science language.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
When I used it was back in the 80s, and the version I used was Fortran 77, and I really have no experience other than that version. I did not like it, to be honest. And the thing, I remember it was one of the first times there was a computing thing that had a hill I was willing to die on, and everybody disagreed. And that just set the stage for many such hills in the future. And it was the first time I had encountered, like I dabbled with other languages. I already knew BASIC. I knew other things. And in school, we were being taught Fortran. And there was this idea that there was an implicit variable type based on the first letter of the variable. So if a variable started with I or J, K, L, I think up to N, something like that, that range, it's an integer. And otherwise, it's real. And so you can tell what it is based on the. I was like, well, that's terrible. That's a terrible idea. Because what if the perfect variable name I have starts with a J, but I want it to be something else? This is crazy. And then it turns out there's an implicit command. So you can set what that is. So you can say, for my program, I'm going to say implicit, and there was you couldn't use strings, but there's characters. So, and you had to say how many letters. So I'd say like implicit character times 4, and then brackets like S. And so any variable now that for my program, if it starts with S, it's a 4-character variable. And I was like, so if I'm looking at page 18 of any program, I got to go to the beginning and go, well, what do you, I'm like, this is terrible. What? And so I said, every Fortran language should begin with implicit none. I am doing a full-on declare on every variable always, and everyone should have to. And everyone thought I was being a total idiot about it. So my teacher, everybody's like, well, I'm like, no, this is terrible. This is going to cause mistakes. So it was the first time with the language I was just hell-bent on changing everything. And then just said, why don't I just never use Fortran? And that worked great for me. So.
Well, it's funny, though, that idea came back around in the C++ era, because it got to where we went too far the other way, where things were getting so weakly typed that you couldn't tell what anything was anymore. And if you did it wrong in C++, you could cost yourself a ton of performance. If you're doing a quick, addition that ended up getting promoted.
Oh, I think it's
promoted
possible.
to Fortran.
Yeah.
Yes. Just a blue screen.
I think it's possible. Yes. Quinn
Yes.
has a sad, I don't know what, fate often on StreamYard, which is that her computer reacts very poorly to it.
To StreamYard. Yeah. We'll see if my new one does. But I think what she's saying, if it got promoted from an integer to like a real or whatever, or a double precision thing, and suddenly everything's slow as heck, So things went the other way with C++. I remember that. But for me, it was the hill I died on was every Fortran program should begin with implicit none. That's it. You have to specifically declare every type of every variable. That's how it should be.
If
Everyone
it means
disagreed.
anything to you,
Fortran ignored me.
Carrington, I don't disagree with you. I think
No one should ever disagree with me.
well, okay.
Are
I'll
you back
go
to
along with
disagreeing
that.
with me?
But except for the whole Commodore thing. But usually I don't disagree with you. But on the assumptions in languages, horrible practice. You should
And
have
see,
to
I say
declare
that, but
what's going on.
one thing everyone always has to keep in mind is what a raging hypocrite I am. Because in modern languages, I love the fact that I don't have to declare stuff. Everything should be whatever I feel like. If I'm doing something in Perl or PHP or whatever, I'm like, you know what? You figure it out as I go. This was a number. Now it's a character. Now it's a string. Deal. Just like what? So I've gone completely the other way with the most lazy programmer ever. But back in high school, I railed against implicit types. I don't know. My opinions change.
Isn't there like a kind of a difference in use case though?
Yeah,
Between those?
young
Like
Carrington,
if you're
old
talking,
Carrington.
well, I mean, if you're talking Perl, a scripting language used often for automation or for cranking through some text or whatever, maybe having dynamic typing in that environment is a good idea.
Is it so hard to add, like when you create a variable the first time, just say, hey, compiler, just so you know, and this is a string, this is a real. The reason I don't is I'm probably going to change it. I'm probably going to forget. I just want it to be what it's going to be. So my hypocrisy knows no bounds. Quinn, you came in back at the right time.
Excellent. So once again, StreamYard has blue screened my computer. As we were saying before the show, how is it in this day and age that a web page can blue screen your entire computer? That should not be possible. Anyway, what I was saying was that idea of prefixing variables came back around in the C++ era where typing got really weak and mistakes in that could cost you a lot of performance. Like on the PlayStation 1, for example, which didn't have floating point hardware, if something got promoted to a double because you didn't type it hard enough, that would be a huge frame rate hit, or in that part of the code. So then developers started prefixing everything with, I's and F's and things in the code to make sure that, people knew what everything was, and it wasn't enforced by the compiler per se, although you could type def and things like that. But people would do that because, the pendulum swung too hard the other way. So all that to say, you were wrong. Fortran had it correct all along. It foresaw this problem, and Carrington is wrong.
Nobody's surprised.
Yeah.
Not even Carrington.
And maybe this was said while I was blue screened, but I also wanted to note that Fortran really kind of came into its own again in the modern era because it was one of the few languages that's really set up for parallel programming. And, in this age of vector processors and DSPs and GPUs, parallel and vector-based programming is, something we need very desperately. And very few languages are good at that. C++ is terrible at it, for example. And so it was really poorly suited for that. So it's, I think, where you see Fortran strong in science and that kind of big data types of applications, just because of how well it adapts to parallel processing and things like GPUs and DSPs, which are processing, vector structures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's, when you go to fortranlang.org, that is the very top thing that they say, high performance parallel programming languages. And, first sentence is, Fortran has been designed from the ground up for computationally intensive, so they're definitely
a little bit of
still
branding there. I think it was luck that it ended up being so well suited to parallel programming, but that's
no,
okay.
I think at the time it was just, we need a compiler that can do anything. That doesn't make me have to type everything in machine code.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think portability was the original design goal because that was just not a thing at the time.
Mm. It is interesting. I did not. It's possible I knew this at one point and forgot, but Fortran is no longer all caps. It was once an all caps, like the name Fortran used to be rendered in all caps, and they have now switched it to be just Fortran. So it's, I guess, not. I don't know if it really does. I guess it retains its, what is it, formula translation or something?
Yeah,
like
formula
that,
translator or something. Yeah.
Yeah, but they back in the olden days they didn't know how to make acronyms anyway. I mean, you don't take 3 letters from one word 4 from the next.
Yeah. Was it Earl? Was it you and on the you did a podcast recently about Snowball over on Next Without 4, and that was one of the most tortured acronyms that I think I've ever heard of. Like, they really wanted that to spell Snowball.
Yeah. Indeed.
And with
Talk
the same-
about a backronym.
Yeah. They were working pretty hard on that one.
Okay. So yes, Fortran. I guess the 1954 connection was the like the original paper or something like that, right? I think some sort of published specification.
And there was other stuff in 1954, right? Like magnetic drum storage.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, one of the things when I went to look up 1954, a lot of things talked about, or like there were a lot of references to the IBM 650, which is, it's the first of some highly qualified category of things.
First, everything's a first.
Yeah. So the first mass-produced computer, it says, footnote. It is the first computer to make a meaningful profit. Meaningful, however you like.
Doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
That's a fuzzy category.
But anyway, it's the IBM 650 magnetic drum data processing machine. And so one of the things that's kind of interesting about this is, that I thought was interesting to talk about perhaps is the drum memory. So the drum storage, it seems like what it is basically like a hard disk or a disk with like a head per track, essentially. And it isn't really, it's not used as a disk, it's used as RAM. I mean, like, this is the operating memory of this thing. So there's a little spinning thing, and it it holds magnetic information, and you wait until it comes back around to find out what is in address 4 or whatever. So there's a picture of I think this is it's something like it. It's not the actual IBM one, but it looks like I don't even know what to say what it looks like. My mother had a food dryer that looked like this. Like you put little apple slices in.
It looks like a dehydrator, yeah, with the little trays, put banana slices on or whatever. Yeah.
But anyway, I didn't know about this type of internal memory before, just today, so that's kind of cool.
One of my favorite parts of the Computer History Museum in Silicon Valley, if anyone who's never been, is they have a really excellent display of all of these old memory technologies, and they have working examples of all of them, and these really great displays that explain how they work. And so they have drum memory, they have core memory, of course, they have sonic delay line, mercury delay line. They have the one that's like a coil of nickel wire that like a signal bounces back and forth in. Just all these crazy things, some of which were only used in one or two machines. But yeah, what's great is it explains how it works, and it's pretty cool. So they have, that's the only place I've ever seen drum memory in person is there.
Yeah, it took me on a little tangent, which is I probably shouldn't indulge this, but anyway, what I was thinking, sometimes they would refer to these as drum machines. And so I thought, well, drum machine. I know what a drum machine is. And so I looked up a 1950s drum machine that is, it's actually 1959, so it's not quite 1954, but it is the first ever drum machine you could buy is what this YouTube video is labeled. But it's essentially, and the video is actually pretty cool. It sort of walks through, it's a very sort of, I don't know, punk affected youtH.
Yes.
Kind of talking through this, but actually quite knowledgeable about the electronics and stuff like that behind it. I mean, it's pretty sophisticated video, and sort of goes through, sort of talking about how this thing actually works. It has a sort of electromechanical timer in it that will run the beats, and then it has this set of controls that let you set it to, like, samba, and choose like what your there we have on the video we're watching it playing it manually. But so it's pretty interesting. If you were at all interested in drum machine technology, this is one of the earliest ones. It was a big cabinet that you set next to your organ or whatever, and you could just hit play while you played along with it.
Yeah, I've actually, I've seen this guy. I think he actually restored this thing in an earlier video as well. So you got to see all of the functioning of it. It's basically the same technology as is in electromechanical pinball machines. So it's those stacked wiper switches and relays, and that same kind of, there's a certain sort of technology level that enabled this and pinball machines and various other things at that time. And it's pretty cool to see it all work.
One thing that I thought was quite interesting about this in particular was just the lack of abstractness in the design. I mean, like these switches are, they are connected to bars that are connected to the wires. I mean, like there's no intermediate level there. You push the lever and it moves the little wheel inside.
Yeah, that's what's great about electromechanical things. There's no layers of abstraction. Like you can just look at it and see what it does. It's like, oh, I see, that moves, and then that turns that on.
Yeah,
times 1,000.
The speed he's demonstrating here, the speed is changing, and it really is just basically like it's moving a wheel sort of like further in or out on an orthogonal wheel that it's spinning against. So it is it's like geometry basically is the only thing that's running this.
It's a continuously variable transmission is what that is.
It's a CVT.
Yeah, they still use them in cars to this day, or it's popular on agricultural equipment as well. It's usually done with two halves, two cones that are that form a pulley, and you change the distance between the cones, and it changes the effective diameter of the pulley. It's very common.
Yeah. Anyway, so this is not drum memory, but it is a drum machine, and I thought it was interesting in its own right, even if it's fairly tortured trying to get it into the 1954 episode.
It was worth it.
Yeah. What else? I don't know. The only other note I had here, and I don't know if we are prepared to talk about it, and maybe not, but there is an article about the Sage. What was it? It stands for something, but it is it's actually kind of a what was it called? The Whirlwind is kind of an ancestor to the Sage, in a sense. The semi-automatic ground environment. It definitely came up in some prior
but we
episodes.
talked about it before because it's truly massive size.
Yeah. But actually we could probably talk about that any time because it's, the connection to 1954 is really quite tenuous. There was a Gizmodo article that pinned it at 1954, which is what kind of made it come to my attention. And this Gizmodo article is actually pretty, it's nicely written too. It's sort of talking about, looking back at this large computer that was for kind of like Cold War defense essentially, and but was sort of never used. It was which is fine probably.
I think thank goodness is the word you're looking for.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it's a kind of a nicely written article at least. So
I was looking it up because I remember it was large, but yes, it's the largest discrete component based computer ever built. The DC, the main part of it, took a tire floor, approximately 22,000 square feet, about 2,000 square meters. And that on top of that was the supporting equipment, which on other floors. Amazing. Huge, truly giant computer.
All right. Anything else that we wanted to talk about either, the number 254 or 1954?
We need more bits.
We are running out of bits. We
Very
are definitely
soon.
running out of bits. I think we have enough bits for one more.
There's a bit shortage due to supply chain issues. So
Yeah.
we have to go back to zero.
That's right. Okay. I guess then we can move on to what? I guess there was one piece of feedback that we actually I'm going to skip that. There was a listener feedback that I will come back to when Michael's on because I think he will have an opinion. Okay, so we could move on to the items of interest in news. And Carrington, you have the first one in this list.
Oh, I do. Okay. I thought I was going to be second. I would have opened stuff up. It's a pretty quick one, and it's neat. I'll open I'll share a screen for everybody, I can do that. I can share screens on my new computer. Sharing screens. Don't show these tips. Share it. Open preferences. Can't do it because it's a new install. So somebody else has to share it. I tried. I failed. Welcome to new computers. There are 2 new online instant boot emulators for classic Macs. One dedicated to Mac OS 7 and one to Mac OS 8. No, I guess it'd be System 7 and Mac OS 8. And they are at system7.app and Mac OS 8.app. So that would have told me how to refer to them. And it's cool. It's really well done. They are not without bugs, but, neither was the classic Mac. So what do you want? Maybe it's a perfect emulator. I have on both of them opened up the games folder and launched The Secret of Monkey Island. And it launched, and I was beginning to play on both of them. I say that's a success. So it's really cool. You can save states on things. I tried them on a couple of different browsers, and they ran great. They run slow. The mouse is a bit choppy, and I'm on a pretty quick computer. And there was some cutouts in the audio, but still, it's like if you want to check a thing out, it's a remarkable achievement for just having launched these things. Again, one for System 7, one for System 8. So if you just wanted to duck in and try a thing, there's a ton of games loaded for both of them, but also other apps and stuff. And if you just want to check out the operating systems, it's pretty cool. We'll have a link in the show notes to both of these, so you open up and look at them or play things. There's more than just games and classic computers, apparently, but whatever. There's a blog post we'll link to as well, which shows all the technical details about how they got put together. And touching on Secret of Monkey Island, these made me excited for Return to Monkey Island, which is coming soon. And by coming soon, which is the funny thing is I was entering that in the show notes earlier, and I'm excited about the Return to Monkey Island coming in 2022. And it was only a few minutes later I realized, oh wait, this is 2022.
That's right.
Seemed like a year that would be in the future, so I changed it to coming soon. But what can you do?
Interesting.
So yeah,
Many
I'm
interesting
excited about
things
all
there.
of this.
Yeah.
Mostly ways to play versions of Monkey Island, all of which are fun.
It's not a game I played before, but I've
recommend
definitely
it.
heard it.
Yeah.
Heard of it, that is.
If you're a fan of point and click games of the LucasArts variety, it's those. They're lots of humor, fun, decent puzzles, spitting contest. They're fun games.
The in my experience, since I was the one that was doing the screen sharing while Carrington was talking about the macOS 8.app and System 7.app, the double clicking for me works a lot better in OS 8 than it did in System 7. I had to I could not get it to so the little quirks with just interacting with a web page, but it is a web page. I mean, come on, it's I guess at this point web pages are capable of blue screening computers, but still,
Apparently.
Clearly.
It runs slow enough, I think. I mean, there's a lot of games that there's marathon. It's not going to be playable, I think. But smaller games, I don't know. I launched Bolo as well. Got to tootle around in that. So fun way to duck in and play some games.
Do you know what's underpinning it? Is it sitting on JS Mess or something?
No. No, I don't know. Not no.
Yeah.
It is not. Guess again. Looks like it's a PCE.js framework. I don't know what that is.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, looks like same thing as the Internet Archive's Mac emulation
Okay. So it is JavaScript at least.
of some sort, right?
Interesting.
Apparently, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, just playing with the Finder, it feels like I'm using an actual Mac. I mean, it seemed fast from just opening Windows, so it's definitely not absurdly slow. But once you get to Marathon, yeah.
I was super impressed though. I was like, wow, look at this, because it is like instant boot. You go to this web page, you're in. They're it's like, wow, that's way quicker than I could launch a real one.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
It says James Friend's in-browser Basilisk 2 is the underlying text.
Really?
So,
Oh, cool.
That's cool.
So I guess it's Basilisk 2 recompiled for JavaScript.
Or not.
So I launched them, and it was just fun seeing both of them come up in the
Yeah,
browser.
I'm impressed. I'm quite impressed.
System 7 and OS 8 are kind of the gap years for me in the Macintosh. So early on in the Macintosh, Mac Plus, Mac SE, the Mac 2. And then around the time System 7 came out, I kind of wound up pivoting to the PC world.
You were like, two
Didn't-
programs at once. I don't think so. I'm out.
Exactly.
Earl drops the mic and says, no, I say, Multi-Finder was enough for me.
And then jump back into Macintosh in the OS 10 years. So these will be fun to
Oh, it
poke
finally
around
slowed
with.
back down enough for you.
Exactly. These were just too darn efficient.
That's right. Too many games were distracting you on the other platforms.
There's just too much darn software. Yeah, System 7 was kind of a sweet spot, I think, for that era of Macs. 8 and 9 got real bad real fast, and
Yeah.
it got to where everything was so slow and so buggy. And then, yeah, luckily OS X came along to save us all, but it was looking pretty grim there for a while.
Oh, but
Although,
Copeland
I mean-
will be out any year now.
Right. I would say that the public beta of OS 10 was not. It didn't seem like the road to salvation.
No,
It did not, right? Wow.
it was really Jaguar, like the second one, where
Yeah.
it was like, okay, this is the thing now. Because that before that, it was running almost entirely emulated, and whole cores of the OS were still running on Rosetta and stuff. It was very, very slow there for a
I
while.
remember running the public beta on OS 10 thinking, there's no way, really? I know it's lickable and all, but wow, this is so unstable and so slow and nothing runs. I was wrong. Ended up being pretty good, but whoa, I did not feel like it was ready for prime time for a long time.
Well, and that port took many years. People don't, I think, necessarily know. Like the Finder was still almost entirely on the old Carbon frameworks until like OS Lion. Like it was 7 or 8 versions of the OS before they finally ported that to the modern Cocoa APIs. And
Cocoa,
so
that's what was the other
Yeah.
one? Cocoa, right? Carbon Cocoa.
Carbon was the backward compatibility APIs, and they just didn't ever get around to rewriting the Finder. You would think that might be the first thing they did, but nope. They're like, it's fine running half speed. Nobody uses it anyway.
Oh yeah, another thing that sort of interface quirk when I was using the System 7 version was that it still wants you to hold down the mouse. I mean, like you don't click and your menu opens. If you release your finger, the menu goes away again.
Yep, that messes me up.
Yeah.
I mean,
Every time you
the
sit down at
real
an old-
thing did that, right? That's
did,
not
yeah.
a bug.
Yeah.
Of that.
You sit down at an old Mac, it's like, why don't the menus stay open? That's super annoying. Yeah.
But the thing
It's
is,
funny,
it was funny.
at the time there were things that let you have that. There were extensions, whatever. So you'd have like sticky menus, and I never ran those. I was like, oh, why would I want that? Now I'm like, this is unusable.
Yeah. No, I was going to say something quite similar. I was sort of like, I thought that was just, I don't know, it was like a dumb crutch or something. Like, why? I can hold my own windows open. Jeez, what is this for?
The other thing that throws me on old Macs is when you move a window and it just drags an XOR dotted rectangle of it.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have enough horsepower to move the actual pixels until like 98 or 99, somewhere in
When
there.
you let go, I will paint this new window, but I
Yeah.
cannot be bothered in the meantime.
We can't afford to do that. What are you, crazy? You get 12 pixels to move. It's also funny to me how we've gone from, in this conversation, from people refusing to use Fortran because it was too far away from the hardware to now we're running Mac OS 8 in JavaScript in a browser running on 3 layers of virtual machine on top of 16 layers of APIs.
And
Probably
complaining
running
that
on
double clicking
Rosetta.
is a bit slow.
Yes. Yeah, if you're on an M1 Mac, it's probably emulated in at least 3 places.
Right.
And
By
it's
the way-
still faster than my modern machine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's still
Yeah.
faster than the 68,000 Macs were. That's for sure.
So, just to spin back a little bit, Jeremy in the chat pointed out that the article about the Sage mentioned the feature that he remembers most when he saw a Sage console at the Computer History Museum, which was the ashtrays built in. You can sort of see it there.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And I think the idea was that you don't want people leaving for a smoke break and missing the missile attack. So you got to stay there, and you might as well make it possible. I don't want to think about the bathroom breaks. But
Funny, they were smart enough, however, not to put like coasters on them and say, okay, also put your liquid here. So there was some thinking behind, because they're going to have coffees as well. But they said, no, you keep those away from the electronics.
Anyway, yeah. I mention this every once in a while, I think, but I somewhere in my office have a UNIVAC ashtray. So, I mean, it wasn't from a machine. I think it was from an event, but it says UNIVAC on it. But all right, Earl, you have the next thing.
I do. So I guess in celebration of their 75th anniversary, the Association for Computing Machinery, or ACM, is opening up 50 years of their digital library. Now, some folks who, especially if you've been involved at all in academic or scientific computing, you're probably familiar with ACM. They say on their site they're the world's largest educational and scientific computing society that's been around forever, since basically the dawn of modern computing. And the part of their digital library that they've opened up is between 1951 and the year 2000. An example article that I looked at from 1954 talked about small computers in a large world. And it's just fascinating how they defined small computers. It was anything that was less than $150,000, which in 1954 dollars, so that's $1.6 million today. So I'm glad that definition changed somewhere along the way. But this is a really deep rabbit hole that you could fall down into if you're not careful, because there's lots of well-written academic articles in ACM's digital library. They used to be behind, I guess, this membership paywall or whatever, and now this large subset of the library is open. I just think it's going to be great for doing research. It's going to be great as we're going through the 1950s and 60s on this podcast, because one of the search parameters you can use on this digital library is the year that the article was published. So I found this one article that I thought was great reading, the small computers one. They talked about how things would get smaller and better through the use of solid state devices, transistors, magnetic cores, ferrodielectrics. And, things were moving pretty fast in the 50s and 60s in computing. So I'm scared how much time I'm actually going to get sucked into on this being available now. But I thought that was great. So thanks to ACM for doing that. We'll have a link, obviously, in the show notes.
Very cool. Yeah, I think I've read, occasional articles that come from that source, but I certainly haven't spent any time actually sort of digging around what they have. And it would be really interesting to see. I find like looking at old articles like that I'm sort of surprised by how the concerns are all the same as they still are today. I mean, like they're actually quite readable, and they're trying to solve the same problems we haven't solved yet, I guess. But so, yeah, I'm looking forward to looking at that. Okay, I guess it's me. So this actually came from feedback. And so Peter wrote over email, pointing to a video. Well, that's actually sort of pointing to a write-up that leads to a video. The write-up is on neowin.net, and the title of it is "Man Creates Entire Game of Pong Inside a Single Sprite." I think it's kind of an interesting project, at least. So I kind of wanted to talk about it a little bit. But so what this is, it's basically a Commodore programming project, and the first part of the programming project was so this is I don't know exactly how to pronounce his name, probably something like Josip Kalabic, but at any rate he goes by Josip Retrobits, which is pretty close to Earl's. But anyway, so it's he did a basic, like a write up on how to write basic language Pong game on the Commodore, and got a comment about like, well, would it be possible to write a Pong game within a sprite? And it's not entirely clear what that means until you sort of see the project. But essentially the project is to sort of in the area. So the Commodore has the ability to like place a sprite with hardware anywhere on the screen that you tell it to, and so you have a little bitmap somewhere, and that represents what the sprite is. And so what he's done is he's basically written a little game where the ball is bouncing around within the sprite's definition, and then you could put that anywhere on the board. So you have a Pong game, but the Pong game itself is bouncing around the board, which makes it very hard to play.
It looks like he's on his way to creating a Pong game where the ball is itself another Pong game happening inside the ball.
I don't think he's done that, but I did sort of see that as a amusing sort of possibility, you know.
That would be so cool.
Okay, so eventually, you know, the actual demo he's got on his Commodore has the thing bouncing around and has a couple of things where you can make it larger or stop moving around. And he played around with it a little more to make 4 of them. It's sort of it's not exactly a Pong game in a sense because it's single player. You're not playing against anyone. The controls are move up and down, and it simultaneously moves the whatever you call them, the paddle things on each side. So if you hit the up key, then the left one goes up and the right one goes down. And so essentially the score is meaningless. It's basically the sum of the score that is the total of your failures.
Another feeling.
But anyway, I think though that wouldn't be a limitation of doing it in a sprite as much as it would be just, you know, how much code do you put into it?
Yeah.
Because like you say, the sprite is just a bitmap. You could do whatever in terms of how sophisticated you want to get with the program.
Yeah. But it's interesting. I mean, like, you know, so he goes through sort of like how he you know, what it's going to take to design the graphics. And this is the part where he's sort of designing the graphics is really just kind of an explanation for how that turns into, you know, decimal numbers like 255. You know, he doesn't actually do it that way. He's got essentially I think it's a C program that gets translated into assembly, or it's 6502, I guess, and then deposited via BASIC into an appropriate place in memory. But so it's using many different tools to achieve this, but it's kind of an interesting idea anyway.
I don't think I realized that the Commodore sprites were big enough to do this, like that you had enough pixels. Because is it a single sprite, or is it like 3x3 sprites or something?
Well, I think, isn't it like 24 by 21 or something like that? The bits in a sprite. I can't remember.
Really?
Okay. Yeah, I have no idea, but that's pretty good. I don't think I realized Commodore sprites were that high res. That's quite good.
It does seem large, but cool. Okay. Anyway,
I was right. I just Googled it. It's 24 by 21 is the resolution of a single sprite.
Can't believe what you read on the net.
Yeah, I really do like. I like that idea of like taking this one step further though, and having like 2 players, you know, each controlling both the outer and micro paddles.
Right.
Okay. Anyway, Quinn, you have the next thing.
I do. So I will share this screen. So we've been on a kind of a run lately of. Oh no, sorry, I have to
approve things.
Oh gosh, now this is not a new computer, but it's asking me for permissions.
Nope. Without a restart.
I can do it. I got it.
You can't do it. You got nothing.
Here we go.
Okay. Is that sharing properly? Okay.
It is.
I think that video is kind of interesting. I'm still
playing. Okay. So I don't know if that audio is playing through, but we've been on a bit of a tear lately of obscure computers that nobody's heard of. And we've talked a lot about the Sam Coupe, which I only just recently learned, by the way, was a Sinclair computer. I don't think I realized that in all this
Well,
talk.
if it's imaginary, we could say it's in anything. Yeah. Sure, Sinclair, why not?
Yeah, no, it was in the line with I think it was just after the Sinclair. Was it the QR or the weird one with the
QL,
little micro?
Maybe.
QL, yeah, the one with the little weird micro tape drives, the tape loops. Apparently, the Sam Coupe was like right in that same time period. Anyway,
there was something I think last time that we talked about that was actually compatible with both. So that does kind of suggest that's correct. I wondered about how that could be possible, but I guess that's why.
Yeah, I was listening to some other unrelated show that wasn't a retro computing show, and they just completely offhand. It was something like a historical. It was a BBC thing, I think. They were mentioning old British computers, and they just threw out there, like the Sinclair QL and the Sam Coupe from Sinclair, and I was like, wait, what? Record scratch? Go back to that. It's only the second mention of this thing I've ever heard.
This like conspiracy is getting like deeper and deeper.
It's galactic now, yeah.
Deep fake retro computers.
Yeah. So this YouTube video that I'm linking to here is one of those. So I like this link for a bunch of reasons. First of all, it's a YouTube video from a channel called Adrian's Digital Basement, which I had not seen before, but this channel is awesome, so I will be watching a lot more of it. And not just because he's wearing a really incredible vintage Apple II shirt in this video. Like it's so good. But what he's showing in this particular video is something called the SWTP 6800, which is not a computer that I had ever heard of, or
Nope, me neither.
Even. So not only is it an obscure computer that none of us have ever heard of, but it's also the only computer I've seen that actually used the Motorola 6800. That was not very common. Like the 6809 got a fair amount of traction, but I feel like the 6800 never really shipped in anything. Because I think the 6502 came along quite soon after. And as you guys talked about in a recent episode, that was basically a low-cost competitor to the 6800. And so as soon as that came out, I think the 6800 was basically killed in the marketplace. But this is one that used it, came out in 1975, and it's actually technically a kit computer along the lines of an MSI or an Altair. And yeah, this video is just a really nice overview of it. It's about what you expect. It's very primitive. Machine doesn't do a whole lot. You can make blinking lights with it and make it do math. I don't know if it's S100 or not. I haven't watched the entire video, but it's certainly that form factor, so it may have an S100 bus in there as well.
Actually, it's got its own bus, I think.
Oh, okay.
I think it was a proprietary. I watched this video. I really enjoyed it and shuddered when Adrian mentioned that he rescued this from e-waste.
Ooh.
And I thought, oh my gosh, no.
Wow.
Don't recycle one of the old SW TPCs. It's a mouthful to say the name of the company. And I think we talked about this on the last show, and I'd mentioned that I saw ads for these in the magazines back in the day. And the dollars that it cost to get one of these, it wasn't bad. At the time, I had $0, so it didn't really matter. Whatever dollars it was more than the dollars that I had, unless they were paying you to take it. But I remember being interested in this, but then time moved on. It has an interesting bus where instead of card slots, it's actually pins, and the cards themselves have the sockets on them. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some PC stuff was like that, right? Wasn't there? There was a specific expansion part of the ISA bus or something that flipped the male and female pins on the cards. I don't remember exactly which. I've seen it somewhere in PCs. Yeah. Anyway, not important. So the other thing I love about this era of computers is that you can recognize all the parts in them and how they're built, in the sense that like you see the switches on the front, and those were directly from the Radio Shack catalog. Like, exactly where they got those switches, and the outer shell on this thing is clearly a piece of expanded metal mesh from aisle 6 at Home Depot. Like you can, it's been pop riveted in place on the top. It's very clear how they're built, and it's all very off the shelf and kind of DIY, even if it's a commercial product. So it wasn't, it was a little while yet before the computer companies started making all their own tooling and custom, injection molded cases and things. So right up until then, it's like, oh, I could have built that in my garage with stuff that I have. They all have that kind of look, which I always kind of like. The Apple II had a little bit of that, like the original Apple II paddles. If you guys remember those, the black ones, the buttons on them, those are a Radio Shack part number, those buttons. So you still had a little bit of the tail end of that sort of DIY look on the hardware, right up until the Apple II.
Well, and in fact, actually, you mean the wedge ones, right?
And they had the wedge ones, and they had the little red push button on the side.
Well, the funny thing about those
red ones.
Yeah, except that they didn't all have the same button, which even goes further into that.
There you go.
So like some of the buttons are black, some of them are red, some of them are on the top, some of it's there are lots of weird variations on those, and they're actually there was a series of Pong games, I think, that had exactly those paddles. I mean, they're Atari paddles basically.
Yeah, the Pong machines and all the clones and stuff, they were very much of this era too. They all had that same hardware store kind of aesthetic to them. You could clearly tell how they were made. So this is an excellent video. It's a good watch.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
You had a link also to a dramp.com.
I threw that in there.
Okay.
I found another person who's apparently got one of these and does a whole big write-up, and then has a link to a bunch of videos of them in action, and because he's got a floppy disk system with it as well, and a branded monitor. And then what's neat about this site is if you go up to the top level, it's basically just really obscure computers from the 70s. It's like, so what are any of these things other than the Altair? I don't know any of this stuff. What's a Mostech? And so it's neat write-ups in detail with lots of photographs and then links to videos of them in operation.
Wow, these are a
nice.
great site.
Yeah.
The Soul there is the only one I recognize in the Altair, of course, but the vector graphic, the polymorphic something.
It can tell whether you're programming the truth.
Yeah. This one, the Poly 88, I know that this, I think we maybe came across it in an auction or something like that before, but it is a funny looking computer because it really just looks like a power supply. I mean, it's like,
it does. It looks like a power supply sitting next to a Commodore 64, actually.
Yeah,
it does.
That keyboard is very Commodore-y.
Yeah. But yeah,
he does have
really
a great
nice
site, and he's really active in the community too. If you scroll to the bottom there, I think there might be. Keep going.
Yeah.
All the way.
Mike
there
Douglas,
you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Contact information for Mike. He actually helped me refurbish the dual 8-inch floppy drive unit that I have.
Oh, okay.
There's clearly a whole world of 70s computers that I knew nothing about. That's pretty
me too.
interesting.
And he has a YouTube channel also, if you want to see some of these computers in action.
I'm super drawn to these 70s computers, with the notable exception that they're kind of all useless. But I really like them. But I couldn't do anything with any of them. So
they all have a great aesthetic. I would love to own them, but it's hard to actually do a whole lot.
They're just display pieces to me, which is fine. I like art for art's sake. I know what I like.
The Soul 20 is maybe the one in here that I would be most likely to actually really want. I mean, if there had been an easy way to get one at some point, I would have.
I love the look of the Soul 20.
It's the wooden side panels.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And the
blue color.
And also the logo that's kind of like as if it was scrolling in a 1970s commercial and then just got lit up in the middle. I like everything about it. I like the color, the form, the logo, everything.
And I take it all these machines are probably running CPM, yeah?
Probably. I don't know.
I think so.
Or
wasn't
could,
the Sol 20, wasn't that designed by Lee Felsenstein?
That's if you told me that as if you said that confidently, I
would believe you
exactly.
But
sounds right.
That and the Osborne 1. I'm going to look that up.
Yeah.
This is just a podcast. We're not accountable for anything. We just say stuff here.
That's right.
I'm just here for color commentary.
Yeah.
In the chat, Herb suggests looking at Adrian's review of the Apple IIgs manual. So Adrian's digital basement also talks a bit about the Apple IIgs, and apparently this section is actually called "Making Fun of the Apple IIgs Manual."
This is deep in
photos.
3 of my wheelhouses, so I'm very excited to watch this video.
Also, in the earlier shot when he was holding up the manual, all my eye was doing was scanning behind him and all the stuff that was on shelves and things. It's like I think I'll be watching a lot of his videos just to be like, what else do you have? What else do you have? Look at all the stuff you have.
Yeah, little piles of disk drives and stuff like that.
Somewhere there must be a deep analysis of Apple manuals, because they had this really incredible crossfade from incredibly technical and ugly to incredibly beautiful and useless.
Right.
And kind of the 2GS was kind of right in the middle of that, the early Mac manuals, where it's really beautiful typesetting and photography and very little useful information in it. But like a lot of useless information, but mostly useless.
All right.
Yeah, Adrian's channel is really cool. And also, he's a local Portlandian.
That's what they're called.
Portlandian.
Portlandians,
yes.
yeah. The people from Cambridge are called Cantabrigians.
Are they?
Yeah.
That sounds made up.
They
It does, doesn't it?
Don't shorten that. I'm a Cantabrigian.
Right. Okay. Noted. Okay. Anyway, I guess, Carrington, you have the next thing, in fact.
Oh, sure. Right. Okay. So somebody else can share a screen. The University of Saskatchewan here in Canada. Yay, Canada. And it's one of those universities where you can stand and look into the distance and see the horizon in all directions. 10,000 kilometers away. There's mountains to your left and nothing else in any other direction, and like so far away. But they have a computer museum that's actually not an individual room or building. It's spread amongst the campus apparently, which is kind of cool. And it's celebrating 20 years of being a computer museum there, which is they leapt on that early. And turns out it was like a really early university to get computing and such. And what's neat about this is they do a self-guided tour. So you can go to the museum. If you're ever in Saskatchewan, you drop by Saskatoon, which is where I'm guessing it's in Saskatoon, because otherwise I dare any of you, Quinn included, name another city in Saskatchewan. Go. 5 seconds, done. Okay.
Regina.
I can say too late. Okay, name a third. Nobody knows three.
No, there's only two. No.
Right. But neat, it's a self-guided tour, so you can walk around, and they basically have displays of vintage computers and vintage computer artifacts spread amongst the campus. And so you listen to the tour, and you can walk around and go in this building, go to the third floor, go to this room. Here's a display of this, and this one's it. Now, if you scroll down, Paul, to the very bottom, you can see why this appeals to me. You'll see at the very, very bottom. Keep going. There you go. No, up. Scroll down, up. I feel like I'm talking to my mom working on a computer.
So not related, right?
This image.
Okay.
Beautiful artifacts of computing. You see an Altair. You see a PET. There's great look behind it. It's in the Department of Antiquities.
Yeah.
So they display this stuff like it's like behind us all these like artifacts and statues of Greek antiquities, and here's artifacts of computing. I love how they've incorporated this. Like this really makes me want to take this tour and see other ways in which they've displayed this. Right. This photograph makes me want to go to Saskatoon and or Regina and or city to be named later, wherever the heck the University of Saskatchewan is. But how cool is this? So you're in a room full of truly ancient statues, and right in the middle of it is a trio of old computers from the 1970s.
But of course, like if the people in Starfleet or whatever are going to a museum, this would look perfectly normal, right?
Right.
I mean, like it's all of it is just old.
Right.
Well, yeah, like this is sort of insulting, actually. Like
first millennium stuff.
Like it's a beautiful display, but it's not as old as all those statues.
Right.
I don't know.
So
like I remember this
strange.
stuff.
Right. It's so strange. But anyway, this is the weirdest way to do a computer museum ever. And it's celebrating 20 years. And it's interesting. Certainly different. Saskatchewan. There you go.
Is that a PC Junior with like 5 sidecars on it? I didn't even know that that many existed.
I don't know what that is.
Is it?
It looks like 4.
That's what it looks like.
Looks like 4 sidecars on a PC Junior, which I didn't know there were 4. I thought there was just the one that
well, in
everyone had.
ancient Rome, they would often use 4 or 5 sidecars.
Yeah, in the bathhouses they had,
Or as they would refer to it,
Chariots,
IV
right?
or V sidecars.
Yes, IV sidecars. Yes, it's commonly known as a vomitorium.
This is great. If I ever have grandkids, I want to take them here.
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
So
this is where we used to craft books with stones and a chisel. And this is where we used to craft programs with switches and little LED lights.
Right.
You had to
Isn't this
chisel the
neat?
transistors from blocks of silicon, and then
Well, you just get rid of the parts of the stone that isn't the silicon or the
right,
transistor,
yeah, yeah.
right? You know.
Chisel away everything
yes.
that isn't an Altair, and then you turn
Right.
it
Very
on.
Michelangelo.
Well, see, that's the weird thing. When I look at these three computers, I think of these as distinctly different eras of computing. Like an Altair,
Yeah.
a PET, and a PC Junior. These should be completely separated in a computer museum. But they're like, if you are going to lump things together, going down to ancient Greece, then yes, they all
Yeah,
belong
if
together.
this is your scale, yeah. I mean, to be fair, those computers only span about 10 years, but
Right.
I mean, it seems like three completely different eras to people like
Right.
us. Yeah.
So anyway, all this I found remarkable and thought I would share. So we'll have a link to the news about it celebrating 20 years, and that'll give you a link to the photographs you can look at. So
Cool.
take yourself a walking tour.
Okay, I think the last thing I have sort of just a quick thing, but this is Oliver Schmidt has put together a thing called A2 Stream. I don't know who here may have come across this, but what it does basically, it works with the Ethernet 2 card. So it's an Internet card, Internet Ethernet interface card for the Apple II, which also is emulated within the emulator AppleWin. So you can do this with emulation. In fact, I think you can run AppleWin on a Mac if you use, a wrapper to do it, MC, whatever. But yeah, I mean, like Wine will do it, right? Sorry, I surprised myself. Yeah. So what it. It's just a dumb joke.
You can't touch that, Paul. That joke is off limits.
Can't touch that.
Anyway, yeah. But what it does is it's like an audio streamer across the internet, and it's really quite amazing. So basically what you do is you take your WAV file and you convert it into an A2 stream format, and then run this client, and it'll, using the Ethernet 2, will retrieve the data well enough to play it. And there's a demo video which I will show people on the stream, which is a completely pointless exercise because it is an audio thing. But at the bottom you can see the little bars going back and forth where they indicate the playing of music, and the quality of it is just crazy. I mean, like, I don't know how it sounds so good. Particularly if you just send it right out to a speaker, like an external speaker.
Well, I was going to say, is it coming out of the little speaker that's in the Apple II, or?
It can. The Apple II has there's a cassette out, which basically functions just like a speaker, on another channel. So you could play it either on the speaker, the little, whatever it is, 1.5 inch speaker that's inside the Apple II, or you can send it out the cassette port. And if you sample the cassette port, it's going to sound a little better. But anyway, so what Oliver had suggested maybe we do, and I think I will try that with this very episode, is make this episode available as an A2 stream file that you could listen to on your Apple II if you want. So I'm going to try to do that by the time I post it.
That would be really fun.
Yeah,
Totally. This is actually pretty crazy.
It's impressive. I think there's a high probability that we will hear more details about how this works at a Kansas Fest presentation. We haven't, like, none of the talks have been, like, the call for talks has not gone out yet, but I know that this is something that is being planned for possibly presenting. So, but it's an achievement at many levels. But anyway, he thought it would be cool if you could hear RCR playing over it, and I will see if I can make that happen.
Agreed. Yeah.
Well, this must be a real coding achievement, right? Because the Ethernet is just going to give you the bytes coming in. It's not going to do any other processing for you other than that. So all of the other streaming, I guess, technology that you need would have to be cranking out on the Apple II.
Well, I think what's happening is this .A2 stream file format must be preparing things in a way that it can get into an Apple II and come out as good music with minimal processing.
My guess, if I haven't seen this yet, I don't know how it works, but my guess is that it's compiling it effectively, similar to how there was a video streamer for the Apple II that came out recently,
Right.
and the way they did that was literally compiling every frame of video to push pixels, so it was actually running code. I suspect that's probably what this is doing. I think that might be the only way you could do something like this.
But it's neat that you can do that. Like you can make a whole bunch of A2 stream files and stick them up on any HTTP server, and then like have a playlist just playing through your Apple II off the internet. Like that's neat.
Yeah.
So the real magic here is in the pre-processing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It's all magic to me.
He's written a sound compiler, basically like a sprite compiler or a video compiler, which
Cool.
It says a lot about how powerful that technique is for old computers.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, good point.
Oliver just suggests that he's given that there is no way to, and this probably goes along with the technology here, that there's no way to fast forward.
There you
we
go.
may break this up into a few different files so that you don't get an hour and a half into a 2-hour thing and then your power goes out.
It's all gold. Why would you fast forward anything I have to say?
Yeah, if you can't fast forward, I think that's the giveaway right there, that it's running code. But I mean, you could skip ahead probably if some number of seconds. But yeah, if it has to run at one speed, then that's probably because it's compiled.
Yeah.
So cool. Very cool.
Really cool. Can't wait to see that.
Yeah. All right. I think we have made it through our news, and now a word from our sponsor, which I guess is going to be Sage again. That's cool. Yeah, I knew somewhere there is, or maybe a Sage 2 or something. There was some ad. Yeah.
I hope they call out the ashtray in the ad.
Yeah.
Yeah, with 2 ashtrays, one for
You
you,
might
and
be
one for your
seeing it.
secretary.
If you were actually looking at the YouTube video, because they have quite a few shots of the operators doing things on the Sage consoles, but of course the audio listeners won't see that.
Yeah, actually, the video listeners probably won't. I suppose. You're saying I could share that now? I could. I see. Yeah.
I don't know. It's 2 minutes 30. So, I'd put in there that there's an alternate choice there if you'd like to keep it to a minute.
Yeah, sometimes I actually do take these and, to chop them shorter than they were. Just because, it is an audio medium. But, okay. Anyway, I guess we are back here. And we're back. So the host's retro computing gift idea is one that I did not find. I do not actually know who found it.
I found it.
All right, Carrington found it. Tell us
It
about
had to be
what
Carrington
found.
because
Did I find it? I'm just saying that. What is it?
Oh, it is.
I did find it. Yes.
No, it had to be you, Carrington, because you made some snarky thing about Emacs is better
No,
than
I
Emacs.
didn't
that was
put
me,
that.
that part was me.
And,
Okay.
and that pineapple belongs on pizza,
Paul?
which it does.
Yeah.
I like pineapple on pizza, so
Yeah. Just in a second, I will share it here.
I will take the hardcore Canadian stance that pineapple does indeed belong on pizza.
Right there with you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Our choice, though, is not whatever Paul's showing. Yes, it's Atari sneakers. These have as much to do with Atari as anything nowadays. But
Which is to say nothing.
which is to say nothing. They've spelled Atari correctly, and there you go. But if you're super into Atari stuff, like as some people misguidedly are, then these are sneakers. It's from some company I don't know called Cariums, I don't know. And they're like an earth-friendly sneaker company. Apparently you buy sneakers and they plant 2 trees and it's supposed to be non-toxic materials and what have you. So I'm all in favor of all of that. And they have a line of Atari-branded sneakers. So they got 2 different versions. They have the Atari logo on them, or you can get the Atari logo really tiny in the back and their company logo in like pixelated on the front, or you can get these like Game On pixelated ones. So they all come with cork-based inserts that are also Atari branded. And so they're like a neat Atari sneaker. If you rock Atari stuff, then you could probably do worse than rocking Atari sneakers. They've got an old-fashioned My Adidas kind of look. So I dig it. They're $80 or something like that, I think. They're not super expensive, not super cheap for when it comes to sneakers. No idea what quality they are, but they are as officially Atari as anything else. $89 US come in what they brand as male and female versions of the same shoe. Shoes with Atari logo.
Nice.
I'm willing to bet, I will go on record, that the Atari brand has earned more money in the last 20 years as a retro affect on other products than it ever did back in the day making computers.
I think hardcore too, including if you lumped in the era when they were one of the biggest brands of arcade games. I think include that, they're still making more in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Just by putting Atari on stuff and branding that logo. Yep, I think so.
Cool.
And you can help them make even more money by buying these sneakers.
Yeah. When so when this idea came into the
Show this secondly.
yeah. So here's another one. This is from a year ago, March 2021. This news article: Atari sells NFT sneakers for over $3,000, and
What
these are
is
pretty.
They're not actual sneakers. It's digital art of a sneaker.
It is.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's an
okay.
it's an
It
NFT.
is a non-fungible token.
Oh,
You're buying a JPEG for $3,000.
the future is so stupid.
Yeah, unbelievable.
This is
But
why.
but idea is people you make an NFT. Like the whole NFT scan is I make an NFT, and I've got a bunch of Bitcoin, and Quinn has a bunch of Bitcoin. So we agree to. I say, let me just transfer you over a bit of nothing. You buy back my NFT for $3,000. You now have a $3,000 NFT. Woohoo! Look at you. You've just said that this thing is worth $3,000. We show a transaction. It's all 100% scams. Oh my gosh! If you thought cryptocurrency was full of scams, look at NFTs. Holy moly!
And all of that scamming took like 200 billion tons of carbon for nothing.
Crazy.
Absolutely nothing.
Those eco sneakers we just talked about, just buy one of these things. Crazy. And it's kind of too bad because the idea of a digital provenance, like the whole point of an NFT is like, this is this one, I can prove it. And if you had that as a little sticker you put in the back of a original piece of art and said, here's the painting, on the back has the sticker, and we're using the blockchain to prove that you've got actual ownership of the provenance. That's some useful thing. But JPEG of a monkey for $5,000 of untraceable black market currency, nonsense. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. In the show notes right next to this, I put, also Emacs is better than VI and pineapple belongs on pizza, because I knew this is exactly where this is going to go.
Also, it's not VI, it's pronounced 6.
Yeah.
Didn't you see the computers in the ancient
It was the Roman text editor. Yeah.
Yeah.
6. That's what they call it.
All right. Anyway, but
Is that the first
the
time
actual
anyone made that
sneakers.
joke? Because I feel like surely not, and yet I've never heard that joke before.
Surely not. There's no way. I have yet
go
to
around-
come up with an original joke. Not just on this show, folks.
I mean, now I'm going to go around calling it 6 just to enrage all
Yeah.
editor snobs, because that's just gold right there.
And I just want to point out that Lemonherb1 in the chat has a fantastic idea for us. Says, this is an RCR t-shirt idea. Quote, the future is so stupid.
Only if you have a picture of me face palming on it also. 'Cause that,
Doing the Picard. Yeah. That's-
excellent. All right. Well, so and the Atari sneakers we were talking about first are real. They are actual
Yes.
sneakers. You
they
can buy
actually
them.
look like nice
they're not
shoes.
NFTs.
Those are
they're not
actual
virtual.
sneakers.
Yeah.
And honestly, if those came as like a classic Apple logo branded thing, I'd rock them. So
Yeah.
I'm not judging.
I'm
It's just
thinking about it. I might buy a pair of those Atari shoes. They were
Yeah.
nice looking shoes. I'll walk around with Atari logos on me for some reason.
I'll boo you.
Boo my feet.
Okay. So when you're done buying the real sneakers that are on sale, we can turn our attention to eBay. eBay has some things that Carrington would like to tell you about.
I would. Things Paul can buy. You'll have to share links again.
Oh, that's
'cause
right.
New computer. Yeah, Paul. Do it. Work for me. First one, I have not seen this before, and I wonder if you folks have. It's the Apple Credit Salesperson's Kit. So if you were selling Apple Credit, this was the kit to teach you how to do it. It's missing a couple of pieces. It's missing the sample credit card, it says, and it's missing, there's a salesperson's guide, though this person listing it listed as the salesman's kit, even though the original thing says salesperson's guide. And that's the piece that I think is interesting. It came with a cassette to give you lessons and on how to, and so that cassette comes with it, and a Walkman essentially that they stuck an Apple logo on. It's clearly just an Apple logo
crazy.
stuck on, right? And so it's the Apple. It's a whole salesperson's kit. I have never seen this before. I have never encountered an off-brand Apple branded logo Walkman. Like, what an interesting thing. It's $1,000 buy it now for an incomplete kit. So they know they got something worth something. My goodness, that's a bunch of money.
And I would have thought actually that it was just like, the original owner had a Walkman and stuck a little Apple thing on it.
It
but
kind
no,
of
it's
looks like
printed
that.
on the back.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, I
But
wouldn't
doesn't
have
show the
believed it's a real
logo on the.
thing. Yeah.
It doesn't show the logo on the Walkman though. But the Walkman came in the kit.
Yeah,
So-
so like on the back of the box, it has a little diagram of the Walkman.
Right. So crazy. I've never encountered this before. Also, $1,000. My goodness. But neat. So if you want to be an Apple credit salesperson, this is the training kit you would have gotten. It's kind of strange that I've literally never encountered this on eBay or any parts of it before.
I actually didn't know Apple had credit cards back in the day. Like they just recently got back into that, I guess, because they just recently announced the Apple Card, and they want to sell you, money.
Well, see, I don't think these were full-on credit cards. I think this was just you could get a line of credit with Apple in the 80s or 90s.
There's a picture of a credit card on the
I think that was
box.
just your credit line then with Apple. So it was you couldn't use it anywhere, but with Apple you could buy stuff on
Okay.
terms
So it's
using
just,
this thing.
Okay, so it's just financing for computers.
Right, and you'd have a
computer
card with your
purchase. Okay.
number on it. So, but neat.
Interesting.
And you get a General Electric. I mean, they picked General Electric, so you get a General Electric full-size Walkman with an Apple logo stuck on it, and headphones. And I dig a whole bunch of this thing. I don't dig it $1,000, but my goodness, I thought this was cool.
What do you suppose is on the tape? Like, do you put the headphones on the customer to sell this to them, or is it like training
Buy
for the
Apple
salesperson? Yeah, like I don't understand who wears the headphones in this.
I think the salesperson does. This is supposed to be a training thing for you, how to sell Apple credit.
But then why does it come with a Walkman?
Right?
Everybody
Why
had
come
tape
with a
deck.
Walkman? All of it's very strange. This whole idea is very
strange
strange.
thing.
Apple had seriously lost its way. So this is the era where they had 17,000 performers indistinguishable. They said, you know what we got to do? We got to sell some Apple credit with a General Electric Walkman, branded, baby, ship it, go. The frozen head of Steve Jobs says yes.
Yeah, you wonder why they went off the rails. You see this, and you're like, oh yeah, that's what happened.
I think that tape is Gil Amelio speaking with his little accent, telling you buy
Exactly.
the Apple credit. It's going to be great.
This is like John Scully and Carbonite. This whole thing.
So that's my first choice that I think Paul should definitely purchase.
I see.
100%. And my next one is, we've seen this before, even though it says on here,
Yeah.
possibly only one existing. No, we've seen this before, but I've always liked it. I wish they would sold cheaper. It's a lunch bag, Apple branded official lunch bag that comes with a radio built into it. And I would like an Apple little lunch bag with a neat little radio built in, but they always sell for a couple $100. And so as this one does, and they're pushing it as the only one in existence. And it's not.
How do you
So
tune
Paul, you
it?
should buy
There's no dial on it. No.
Apple doesn't believe in buttons. It should just tune. You should just like what it plays.
Yeah.
There's a little tune button on the top right.
Yeah.
Okay, but no indication of where you are on the band, though. So
Right.
you just have
Yeah.
to search around until you find
But-
something.
Isn't that the way we all used our radios? You just like slam it all the way to the left until you know that you're at
Come
88.
back to-
But there was a needle, so you knew, like, if you were looking for NPR, you were at least in the ballpark. Like,
That's
you
funny.
kinda
I
knew.
would always slam all the way to the right and come backwards.
What is
Yeah.
that? 108? I forget.
Something like that. But I would
yeah.
come back down to like Q107 or whatever. So.
I guess it's depended on what was cool in your
See,
area.
Herb knows in the chat. Think of all the friends I can make with this lunch bag. Exactly, Herb. Exactly.
Yeah.
So many
It is
friends.
a-
I don't think
it
I
is
can
a
make
classic
$245 worth of friends. It's being
It's
sold
a
in
classic
Canada.
Apple UI, though. I gotta say, it's like
Yeah.
it's the Apple wheel of
That's
radios.
right. One button. there was a sometime probably around the time that the I don't know the Mic Nano iPod came out or whatever. There was a sort of like a comical fake ad for it was essentially like a click wheel MacBook. Like it had
Yeah,
the
that's-
only
that's
thing
what
it
I was
had.
Referencing, yeah, they called it the Apple wheel. Yeah, that's what I was referencing.
Yeah,
there.
okay.
Yeah, that ad is priceless. It was an Onion thing, I think.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, it was a fake. They had interviews in the store, and people were like, "Oh, I didn't realize how much I hated typing until this. And look how easy it is!" And it takes the guy 10 minutes to type a single word. And yeah, it's classic.
All right. Who's next? I guess Earl, you're next.
Okay. Can you bring it up?
I can't. I think. Oh, do you want me to bring up mine?
Could you share that auction?
I can do that.
Awesome. So we've talked about these before, various iterations of them. This is a microprocessor trainer, little board that you can learn how to program a particular microprocessor. Now, the ones that we've talked about, though, have usually been later, like newer than this. So this came out in 1977, uses an 8080 as the microprocessor. And that's the thing that kind of drew me to it. Because, I mean, in 77, you had the triad of home computers come out, but they were all to a certain level pricey. And still in 1977, you were still in that era where if you could punch something in and make a computer do anything, it was kind of exciting. So I think in 1977, I would have loved to have this. In terms of the industrial design of this particular trainer, it's not as pretty as some of the other ones that we've talked about. It's got some, the connection posts on the upper left. The top is black. The bottom is kind of a white painted metal, it looks like. It's got a little breadboard on it. It's a 8080, and one of the things I found fascinating is that the keypad that it has, think something like a Kim 1 keypad or whatever, but it appears to be in octal. If you zoom in on that keypad, it only goes 0 through 7, and then it's got some special function keys.
Oh, yeah.
In 1977, octal was still a thing. Yeah. People were actually using 3-bit chunks as opposed to 4-bit hexadecimal chunks to have a nice, easy binary conversion sort of thing. But this looks kind of fun. It's got a lot of LEDs, and that appears to be the output. It doesn't seem to have an alphanumeric display like the some of the later trainers that came out. But the fact that it's an 8080 is what drew me to it. And I also put another link that we'll have in the show notes if I think it's on Old Computer Museum site if people want more information on this particular one.
Cool.
Yeah, it seems really cool.
Yes, things were so expensive. If you're training in a like a class situation or training new stuff, whatever, like you can't throw everyone on computers.
Right.
So,
it looks like it's got EEPROMs on it too. There's 2 chips there with the little quartz windows on them under the memory category. So I wonder if there's ROM chips on there as well. The integrated breadboard is really slick. Like the later trainers, like the Kim 1 and stuff, you might get a pin header or something, but to have a full breadboard right on there, like this would have been super handy at the time. This thing is cool.
I like the little happy face sticker. Bottom right corner.
Oh yeah, it is. I didn't actually detect that was.
It comes with an emoji.
Right. Yeah, excellent. All right.
And or the Watchmen have been here.
Who is next? I am next. Okay. Let me organize my windows here just for a second. I was busy. Usually I can do that while other people are talking, but okay. The auctions that I have this time are even more nonsense than usual. So it goes. Okay, let me share this. Stop share. Okay. This one I brought up last time in advance, but just because we were talking about drum machines, this is a drum machine that a friend of mine had when I was in high school. So I think of it as being the right era for all of this. It's a Yamaha RX-17, and so if I listen back to demo tapes of our band, I can recreate this. But anyway, whatever. That's a drum machine.
I had an Elisa's. In fact, I still may have it. That looks kind of like this, actually.
It was pretty good. I mean, it was at least maybe yours is the same level, but it's better than the thing that was built into the Casio, pianos.
The Yamaha series of equipment from this era had really good sound.
So, I was thinking about it, but it's possible that others out there would not have been thinking about this. what is this? I wonder why that's there. Okay, 1 second. Let me.
You've got the funniest CD of the century.
Here we go. Yeah, I see. Okay, I understand.
Oh, this magnetic drum, right?
Okay, so the next auction, it's I thought it was sort of interesting and just in the because it's the kind of thing that just might have disappeared if we didn't have it available on eBay. It is Star Warped. It is a parody CD. It has a sticker on it that says that someone at AOL called it the funniest CD of the century. It can be yours if you want. It is hilarious, according to
How did this not get sued out of existence?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's so I don't even fully understand what it is, but it's, it has games and activities like You Don't Know Jedi, presumably some form of You Don't Know Jack ripoff. Dork Forces. I mean, all of this sounds like not very funny, to be honest. But
it's got a time machine. But what's funny, if you look on the back page, it's got a time machine where you can look at the cast as they go through, and it talks about Baby Yoda.
Oh,
Baby Yoda, Grandpa
nice.
Darth. That's the earliest reference to a Baby Yoda I've seen.
That probably is, yeah. Yeah.
Who's suing who now?
I do sort of like, if your actual cover has to say like, funniest CD of the century and hilarious, then it's quite possible that it doesn't have the internal merit. That is the only thing it's got is the stickers. But
I've never been burned by greatest deal ever.
Yeah. This is very of that period, that schlock period of CD-ROM interactive everything. Like no one had quite figured out what to do with CD-ROMs yet, so they were producing, encyclopedias and then stuff like this.
Yeah, it's a little bit like no one knew what they could come up with. Well, okay, so the reason we need a computer is we need to keep recipes on it. The reason we need BitTorrent is because we need to get those Linux distributions out.
Yeah.
So this says it works on Windows 3.1 or Windows 95, various things, and Mac as well, System 7 or later, Macs and Power Macs. So it's of that era where a lot of things came out using some variant of what was the pre-Flash thing?
Well,
Macromedia,
might have been some
Macromedia stuff. This is going to
yeah.
be totally Macromedia stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, Macromedia was responsible for everything in the bargain bin at Fry's for about 10 years there.
Yep.
I'm not sure we ever did figure out what to do with CD-ROMs and multimedia. It seems like a technology that had a lot of promise, but by the time we might have been figuring out what to do with it, we were already getting into the streaming media era. And it's just,
CD-ROM games, baby. There were tons of CD-ROM games I love.
Yeah, shipping games, I think that was the one niche they found for a while there. So PC games and console games. But yeah, that was about it. Like that was the only use case where an enormous, slow, read-only form of storage really made any sense. But not big enough for a movie, but too big to be useful for any software. So games was kind of the only. Yeah, it's kind of
instead of 6 floppies, 7 floppies, you get a CD. Sounds
well, because disk space was still pretty small and pretty expensive back then. So keeping it all on the CD, I could see that. But not for as much for the multimedia aspect. It's just for the raw number of bytes.
Full motion video games, they are the future.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean,
they're making a comeback.
I'm trying to think. I forget what it was called. I think the format might have been enhanced CD or something like that. But there were a few like music groups and stuff. There was a group called The Residents that made a sort of enhanced CD experience. And you could get a kit. There was some sort of like Apple produced kit that helped you make these multimedia things. It really seemed like it was going to be an industry, but then like a year and a half later, it was all over.
Well, I think what we learned is that, because at the time CD-ROM seemed so huge as to be infinite. Like, what could you even ever do with 640 megabytes? And so everyone thought, well, video, clearly that's the use case. But then it turns out, no, they're way too small for video. And so we had this weird era where people were trying to make it work anyway. And, we had really crappy QuickTime videos being shoehorned into everything to use up the space effectively, but it was so terrible that it wasn't really worth doing. And yeah, so that it turned out to be actually too small when we thought it was too big.
Yeah, I remember Windows 95, I think it was, that had a postage stamp sized video of a Weezer music video. And they were trying to go with, hey, we're interactive and multimedia, and look how cool. And it wasn't that terribly impressive. I mean, maybe it was at the time, but looking back on it, I'm kind of like, I don't even think I was that impressed at the time.
Yeah,
and it certainly is hard to watch them now, those videos. I mean, it's like, either you put your nose print on the screen, or you just watch these big, Minecraft blocks.
Right.
Well, and I mean, they were very, very slow, and I don't think people talked enough about that at the time, or maybe appreciated it enough. Even in like game consoles, for example, the speed of the CD-ROM drove every development decision that we made. Like we pre-processed every asset, and we spent a lot of effort arranging data on the CD so that it could be loaded in any order you would experience it. For example, on even all the way up to the Xbox 360, the last console that I developed for, the streaming, open world games that are the norm now, like the throughput of the DVD drive sets the top speed of the vehicles, for example, because that's as fast as you can get the data loading in the background as you're traveling forward in that vehicle. It's why the first GTA didn't have a real airplane. They had that weird little funky glider because they couldn't stream the data fast enough to fly a plane in that environment. So it was a huge limitation to have that much storage, but then not be able to suck it into RAM through a straw. Like it was really, really crippling how slow they were.
Yeah.
Okay. We've talked in a previous episode ages ago, I think, when I ripped all my CDs and got rid of them, a couple I hung on to only because they had these embedded videos that I was never watched for audio CD. But if you put it in your computer, you can see this video. And there was one by a terrible album, by a terrible band. Sorry if a member of that band is listening, called Pop Will Eat Itself. And I
remember them.
Yeah. They had an album called This Is the Day, This Is the Hour, This Is This. Pop will be sure of itself. And on it was a video. And so I hung on to that CD, like that CD of all CDs, and like a couple of others, just so I could eventually put them in a computer and actually watch the thing. And it was not at all worth all that effort and keeping that CD forever. But funny thing is, I just went on the Wikipedia site, or Wikipedia page for that album, and it doesn't mention the video. Like nobody talks about the fact that it had that embedded video.
Because everyone else threw it away before then.
Maybe, but the Canadian version at least had a little sticker on it saying, it's also a CD-ROM, and you can see a video of, one of the 16 different flavors of fun, or one of their songs. I don't know.
Pop Will Eat Itself was an English band, right? So it was, and they were popular in Canada, I remember, but I don't know. Maybe a lot of Americans never heard of them, so they might not have had a lot of cultural impact.
Right.
I feel like I've heard the name before, but I mean, like, that doesn't mean much. So I don't know how long ago I heard that name. Maybe it was 2 episodes ago when you mentioned this before. Who knows?
Oh, it turns out the song was 16 different flavors of hell, not fun. Okay, well,
Okay. Yeah, and now so the next few things were just like one-liners that occurred to me as I was skimming the listings. But this one I had entitled "Drive for the New Generation."
Why? Just why?
It is a disk drive with a Pepsi sticker on it.
Why? Why would you do that?
It's an Amiga 1011 external 3.5-inch disk drive. So it might actually be, it's probably a thing that people might want, but it also has a Pepsi sticker on it.
I bet at the time someone just had it and they got their Pepsi sticker and they stuck it on their drive.
Yeah.
It is kind of funny that it's a retro Pepsi sticker on a retro drive. Like that is actually kind of cool.
Drive of the new generation.
It may in fact not detract value, but it's still, it's still an unrelated sticker on the drive. Is it Earl? Do you know? I guess maybe you're not in the Amiga world that much, but you don't. Do you know if this is a difficult drive to get?
Not familiar with it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. This was a
what?
So this. At first I thought, it was kind of like a funny poster of like it's got a picture of a mouse, but the mouse's tail has a USB, end to it. And I thought, okay, well, whatever. It's a weird poster, but the poster itself, when you kind of look at it even in its entirety, I don't have any idea what it is. The title says Vintage Microsoft Workplace Poster for Evangelism Month Rare IT Tech Collectible. So it's, it says the top, February is Developer and Platform Evangelism Month, and it has this picture of a mouse with a USB cable as a tail. It says, Evangelism, we can all do better. Learn how, and you could win. Go to, and then it has a website that isn't
not
possible.
Valid. Right.
Not only is it not valid, it seems to be like fill in the blank, and they haven't told you what it is. Like maybe they shipped this before actually setting the website.
So with that single name URL, that must have been an internal site, like on their intranet.
It may have been. That's
be.
the only thing that would make any sense.
And what you fill in, though, is mouse, because you see upside down below that, answer, mouse.
Yeah.
So internally, go to their /mouse to we can all do better.
Oh, you're right. I see. Okay, I missed the 8-point answer mouse upside down print there.
No, it doesn't have a question anywhere, but just the answer is mouse. When in doubt, the answer is mouse.
Yeah.
This looks like a corporate poster generated by an AI, like someone trained a machine learning algorithm on corporate promotional posters, and it generated this.
Yeah. That seems about right. So I don't know why anybody would actually want this, but I thought it was sort of an unusual thing to come across. And I can sort of see why if you had this, you might save it.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, here's the reason why I left the company.
Well, it's the difference between Microsoft and Apple in a nutshell, too. Like, Microsoft never quite got how to do stuff like this. Like, it always comes off dorky and like not cool, no matter how hard they try to do.
But if Apple did it, the mouse would just have one eye in the center of its forehead.
There's clearly not a graphic designer working anywhere at the company.
Right. Okay. The next thing I looked at this and I wasn't sure what to make of it, but the caption I gave it, it's a disc. I don't know what order to say this in for the audio listeners, but it's a 3.5-inch disc. It just says Toshiba companion diskette, and my caption was modern successor to the Pet Rock. So this can be your little accompanying.
It's your buddy.
Yeah.
It's my therapy
Companion
disc.
to what?
I don't think it says. I don't think it says anywhere on here. It is just a companion diskette.
That no doubt came with a Toshiba something.
Maybe
this is the thing that comes with a word processor or whatever.
Yeah.
It might be a driver disk or something for some product, but it's funny that it doesn't say on it what it is. So we may never know what this was.
That's right.
For.
You just bring it with you to from place you move to place you move to, hoping someday you will find out what it's for. But until then, it is your companion.
Well, and maybe nobody fed it, so it died. Maybe it doesn't even work anymore.
Maybe the only sort of substantive thing I found was this Astra 1620 Atari dual floppy thing, which I thought was it was sort of interesting because it has a very weird look to it. Like when I first saw it, I thought this looks like it belongs to the Pet, but it doesn't really look like it belongs to the Pet. It's not the Atari branded. Atari had a prototype dual drive that never kind of made it out, and it's not that. It's a third-party Astra drive. I don't know. Anyway, it just doesn't look like it fits with the Atari. It maybe kind of looks like the XE line or whatever.
And this would be taking dual 5 1/4 inch discs, right? So it looks, if so, it's big and heavy looking.
Yeah.
Well, it's Atari, right? So it has to have its own like CPU and power supply and stuff in it, which is why it's so big, because it's SIO, right?
Right.
Similar to the Commodore drives. The styling of it, though, to me looks like there was a lot of third-party Apple II products like this, where they looked sort of vaguely in the same family of design as the Apple product it was supposed to sit next to. But, it's a small company, and it was probably designed by the owner's kid or whatever, and they didn't quite get it. And that's what this looks like to me. Like, it's trying to look Atari-ish, but they didn't quite. They missed a little.
Right. Yeah, possibly just enough not to be sued. Also,
Right.
Yeah, well, you can't sue for design language, I don't think, but it's interesting how you like compare that to today, where third-party companies are really good at that, right? Like you go and you buy a Belkin something for your Mac, and it looks exactly like Johnny Ive designed it. Like people have gotten very good at making things look right next to what they're supposed to sit next to.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I mean, is this company a known company to anyone here, or Astra?
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know if it's a good Atari drive. I only know that it is claimed that the claim is that it is an Atari drive. But,
well, if Atari never shipped their dual drive, then at the time that would have been an awesome thing to own, because two floppy drives was super nice.
Well, and the single floppy drive. I mean, like we're probably all sort of familiar with what those are like, and they are giant and heavy. I mean, you don't want two of those.
One floppy drive was super frustrating. Like it really was a huge advantage to have two. So that would be a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Herb in the chat notes the vents on the side make it look a little bit like a disc 2 or like
I was thinking
sample thing.
It does have a little Apple-y back to it there. Yeah.
I think it probably still also calls back to the Atari XE line though as well. It kind of looks like it would fit next to one of those, doesn't it?
More so than like the Atari 800 or 400 for sure. Yeah. Like it's definitely like a later Atari mimic.
It looks
styling.
kind of Atari 800 to me.
Yeah.
Same kind of tan coloring. Same 7,000 pound weight.
Yeah. The tan. Some of that tan was acquired along the way.
Okay.
But
yeah, part of it. Yeah, we can't tell what color it used to be. I guess that's part of it. It's hard to say.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I think I've just about managed to find a picture of a 65XE or 800XL or something like that, and I think it does have these vents. So,
I think it was more like the XL.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
like the XE, right? The XE I thought was kind of that gray and diagonalized style.
Yeah. No, I my Atari knowledge was or lack thereof was showing. But
yeah, it looks like a pretty decent
right,
match for the XL. Actually, it would look okay sitting next to that.
Yeah.
Yep. Kind of those little notches too. Yeah. Cool.
All right. I guess the last thing the last auction I found. Where is that auction? It is this, and it has already ended. Yeah. So it hadn't ended, 2 hours ago when we started, but it has ended now. It is a Sanyo, VM4209 monitor, which is it's a nothing monitor. It's a security monitor,
but
black and white. But it the thing is that it was the one that they used with the Apple II.
Yep. All the Apple people immediately recognized that.
Exactly. We're like, oh, that monitor, I know that one. Put it on your top of your Apple II with the disc beside it.
Yeah.
It's funny that 50 years later, these TVs are super valuable because one photo was taken with it 40 years ago, and that photo was used in so much of Apple's marketing. Yeah. So everybody thinks this was the de facto Apple II monitor.
The one.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's we don't know what it sold for because it was listed at $800, but it was a best offer lower than that was accepted. So, but
still probably quite a bit.
Yeah, I bet it was a fair amount. And I mean, like I admit I looked for these. I have two, but anyway, there was a time when I had zero, and yeah, I mean, there is nothing to them except for they things that were equally good at the time, but not in those photos.
Right.
Don't have the same value.
Yeah, I'm sure it was just the one that they happened to have on hand when they decided to take some product photos of the Apple II, and now it's just immortalized as the canonical original pre-2 Plus monitor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're I mean, I think they're good for what they're trying to do. I mean, like they are relatively sharp for the text and stuff like that. So,
and also it fit nicely when you put the drives beside it.
Yeah. It was a really good fit. Yeah,
it looks like it's kind of made, and I think that was probably the aesthetic. If you're taking a photograph, like look at this, you can make a thing that all fits together nicely. Mm-hmm. So just happened to be the right width.
Yeah, I'm sure if I just search for like Apple II image, right. that's going to be the one that that comes up.
Yeah.
Though there was part of the other thing that made me not dump this, and I'm trying to actually find it again. But I think on the I think one of the images on the dramp.com site had one. So it wasn't the SWTP TCP, but it was the TPC. Sorry, but it was maybe it was. I don't know. Anyway, the image did show up when we were looking at the SWTP 6800. So maybe it was actually in that video that Quinn you linked to originally. First we were watching insurance
could
ad.
be.
But anyway, it's not this right now. For anyone who is listening to this part, I cut out. Yeah, there it is.
Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah.
So that actually was in the video, but it wasn't actually that computer. But this is there is on the screen. There is an old picture of that monitor by a TV typewriter 2.
I've never seen, like I had back in the day or today, I've never seen one of these in person. Like why were they so apparently popular? I've never ever seen one.
They were probably just super cheap at the time.
Yeah. I mean, I think so the boards or whatever, had them. All right, why can I not paste this? Here's one of those photos, I think.
Yeah, there it
although
is.
this may be a modern recreation.
No, that's
Oh,
a different monitor, isn't it?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I can't tell.
It's got
I was
the
just
door
looking for the
closed.
strap on
Yeah.
top, is what tells me.
yeah. Oh, and the knobs are missing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
different.
think this might be a recreation.
Yeah, the photo I'm thinking of has a person sitting at said
Mhm.
computer.
Yeah, that's what I always think of too.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, we'll remove that. So that was it. That was basically all I found on eBay this time. Just a string of jokes. But anyway, so I guess we made it to closing discussions. Carrington, did you have a closing note?
Nope. Other than I'm going into a trade show the next couple of weeks. It's going to be a nightmare. So I'll give myself the night off and I'll be just playing retro computers tonight. So I don't know what, but probably some sort of early Mac CD-ROM game. So I will put my fingers where my mouth is or whatever the phrase would be.
I'm not sure that's it.
I play, so I don't know what, but I have a collection of them, and I've got a iMac GeForce sitting here ready to play games on. So tonight will be a gaming night.
Cool. Earl, I guess you are next. Any closing notes?
I don't think so.
All right.
Other than just aspirationally, I wish I had a little bit more time to poke around with the vintage computers. I think I need to take a cue from Carrington there and find one of these times to just give myself the night off and poke around on this stuff.
Yeah, that would be good. I for me, I have. I was just looking again at this this ESP32 thing. I have this ESP32 dev kit that is supposed to be usable as the brain of a FujiNet device for the Apple. So I'm. I think the next thing I would like to try, if I can do this soon, I think I have all the pieces, is to just figure out a way to program it in and try it out. Because I think even though there's no actual device, you can use little patch cables and hook it up in some kind of hacky way to try it. So that's my future project. I have not done it, but I'm thinking that I will. Maybe next time. Maybe at the end of the 8-bit era on RCR, I can bring that up.
Is it a FujiNet for the Apple II, you said?
Yeah, it is the FujiNet project, which is you can kind of guess by the name, originating on the Atari, but
Right.
they
But
are working on expanding it.
Oh, it has gone wider. Okay. I hope on the Apple II they call it the FruityNet.
Yes.
It does feel like, I mean, I guess it's a little bit like the applesauce, flux drive, right? I mean, like clearly it originated as a way to talk to the disk 2, but now you can do, Atari and Victor 9000 and all kinds of stuff on it.
That's true. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I wonder if PC people are looking at that now and going, "Why is it called applesauce?" What?
Right.
Yeah, doesn't make any sense. I mean, like partly because people. I mean, I guess people do still sort of know Apple as the company, but you have iPhones and you have Macs. Apple doesn't feature in product names really.
Yeah. Well, and Apple products ran out of Apple related puns in like 1983.
Right.
So all the pies and sauces and bites and things all got used up a long time ago.
Right.
And none of them were good, for the record.
Yeah. Quinn, yeah, any closing notes?
Well, I'm slowly making progress on my 2GS game again. I've been flying a lot actually this year, and there's nothing better to distract you from the fact that you're in an aluminum plague tube than writing Apple II software. So that's I've slowly made some more progress there, and actually I'm moving back to an undisclosed location in Canada this year, so I will be thousands of miles closer to the legendary my parents' basement, which contains a 2GS, a 2 Plus, and not that I will ever admit this, a Commodore 64. So I'm hoping that stuff will find its way into my new place up in Canada, and so I'll get to actually play with a bunch more real hardware. I should have some space to set it all up and make my own little something with all that.
Very
Nice.
cool. Well, good luck with that and with the plague tubes.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what condition all that stuff's in, because all of it has literally been in boxes in that basement for 30 years. So last time I went and checked on it once about 10 years ago, and there was some mouse damage on some of the boxes. So maybe fine. I did pull the GS out and cut the battery out of it, so I know the motherboard's okay.
Nice.
But otherwise, it should all be okay. But like, it'll be interesting to see if the CRTs fire up and all that. I have all the floppies here. I dragged
some
all.
sense.
Yeah, I dragged all my floppies home many years ago, so I have those here. But I have no idea, what else in there still works or doesn't. Someone in the comments asked if I'm taking the workshop with me, and yes, I am. And boy, the logistics on that, don't get me started. You don't want to know what it costs to move a machine shop 2,000 miles. It's an adventure.
2,000 miles internationally.
Right,
Yeah,
over a border. is gonna
over an
be
international
better.
border. Yeah, it's a 6-month project basically to do this move, and I'm halfway through it at the moment. So,
Excellent.
but good things in the future though.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's got to be, even if this part is not fun, I'm sure it'll be kind of fun to get a chance to reset, do everything the right way the second time.
Yeah, no, it's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to having all the retro stuff back at home and being back with all my friends and family. So it's going to be good.
Excellent. All right, I think we have made it to the end of this episode. Congratulations.
It's time to dance.
It is, and now is when we dance. So that's it for this show. You can find the show notes for this and all the RCR shows at rcrpodcast.com. You can discuss the show in the forums at vcfed.org/forum/forum.php. You can follow RCR on Twitter at RCRcast. You can join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/RCRpodcast. You can send feedback to feedback at rcrpodcast.com. We are a member of the Throwback Network at throwbackreviews.com. And write a review on iTunes if you wish. And until next time,
Retrocompute. Nailed it.
yes.
Do
Awesome.
people know that the whole time you're reading that outro, Carrington and sometimes me are just trying to make you crack up the entire
Yeah.
time?
I think it's possible they do. Definitely everybody in
Increasingly
the,
stupid things on camera. Yeah.
That's part of the show.
yeah.
So every time you hear a crack in Paul's voice when he's doing that little speech, it means
I
Carrington
win.
scored a point.
That's right.
And that means Paul has to buy whatever I picked for eBay.
Ah, interesting.
Yes.
That's why I've been doing that. I see.
Yeah, let's be honest. He was going to do that anyway, so it's
I
a
order
pretty
you to
hollow
rise,
victory.
son.
I'll show you. I'm going to buy everything in preemptively.
So, okay. Anyway, thanks everyone for being here. Thanks, YouTube, for
Indeed.
following along. We will see you next time.